Hello, my name is Deborah Perez, and I'm going to be talking about understanding injury development during the power clean exercise. The power clean is an Olympic-style lift that requires precision, speed, and power. This lift is a commonly used lift for strength and conditioning programs, as it is considered a functional movement that requires high amounts of force production and power output. This lift is also commonly used as a measure of power in athletes. The basic goal of this lift is to move the barbell from the floor to the front of the shoulders in one continuous vertical motion. This requires a series of complex and synchronized movements. The entire lift may be broken into 6 phases: the first pull, the transition to the start of the second pull, completion of the second pull, turnover, catch, and recovery. The preferred technique for this exercise begins with the lifter standing with the bar at mid-shin level, approximately over the metatarsals. The lifter's grip should be slightly wider than the shoulders, and the shoulders should be over the bar or slightly in front of the bar. The knees start directly beneath the shoulders, and the shoulders should always stay higher than the hips. The lifter should rise from the starting position by extending the knees and hips simultaneously so the shoulders and hips rise together. While maintaining a neutral spine and a tight core, the first pull is completed when the lifter is standing with the bar just below knee level. During the transition, the knees rebend and move under the barbell, while the lifter's trunk is moved to almost vertical. During the rebend, there should not be any excessive lumbar flexion or extension. The second pull is characterized by a powerful triple extension of the hips, knees, and ankles, as well as a violent shoulder shrug. This triple extension gives the bar the vertical velocity necessary to rise in the vertical plane. During this phase, vertical velocities may reach up to 1.7 meters per second. Once the bar reaches 55 to 65% of the lifter's height, the turnover is initiated. Once the bar is raised enough in the vertical plane, the lifter begins to descend beneath the bar as the elbows rapidly swing under and accelerate vertically until the upper arms are parallel with the floor. At this point, the lifter should be under the bar, and the bar rested on the anterior deltoids. The lifter will catch the bar in a half squat while keeping the chest high, the torso tight and stable, and the elbows high. I should note that in this photo, the lifter is actually performing a clean exercise as opposed to a power clean. The clean exercise would require the lifter to catch the bar below parallel in a full squat, whereas the power clean does not require a full squat. At the end of the catch phase, the lifter is essentially at the bottom of a squat. The recovery requires the lifter to come up out of the squat by driving through the heels, and again, the chest should stay high, the torso as vertical as possible, and the knees should track over the toes as to not allow excessive knee valgus. This is a video of my friend Dan. He's going to complete some power cleans. You can see his very good form. His initial pull from the ground is very slow. He bypasses the knees and then very rapidly shrugs his shoulders and extends the knees and hips. He then catches the barbell in a bent knee position, but not a full squat. The bent knees during the catch are very important as it increases impact time, decreasing the ground reaction forces sustained by the knees. Now here from the side view, we can see that he begins with the barbell very close to his shins. His back is very, very straight. His gaze is straight forward. And we can't see very well, but his shins are very perpendicular to the floor when he begins. That plate's kind of in our way, so we can't see it very well, but he's basically perpendicular. His hips stay higher, lower than his shoulders. The shoulders are just in front of the barbell, and his gaze stays straight ahead. We can also see that his elbows are parallel to the ground. Overuse injuries can occur when a stress is repeatedly applied that is too small to cause an acute injury. The greater the magnitude of the stress, the fewer repetitions will be necessary to cause injury. This type of injury may develop if a lifter does not allow enough recovery time for remodeling of micro damage. Other movement dysfunctions can predispose an individual to overuse injury during a power clean or if they perform a power clean repeatedly, such as excessive pronation due to decreased activity of the posterior tibialis, weak hip abductors or tight adductors allowing excessive knee valgus, as we can see in this person right here, or weak core stabilizers allowing excessive lumbar flexion. Some factors that can influence injury during the start position include decreased dorsiflexion, secondary to a tight gastroc soleus complex. The start position requires substantial dorsiflexion as the lifter must lower itself to its center of mass with minimal lumbar flexion. Decreased dorsiflexion may cause the lifter to raise the heels during the first pull, resulting in increased stress on the lumbar spine and possibly a strain on the Achilles tendon. Hip mobility and core stability are also important factors for execution of the first pull without injury. The lifter must have strength and flexibility of the core in order to maintain a neutral spine while bending at the hips. A deficiency in core stability during the first pull can cause the back to round, increasing stress on the vertebral column and increasing the risk for muscle strains and disc herniations. The second pull, the turnover, and the catch are all very rapid and explosive in nature. These characteristics alone can increase the potential for injury. It's not uncommon for weightlifting injuries to occur secondary to velocity of the movement. The jerking or rotational movements associated with these lifts increase the probability of injury. During the turnover and the catch, the arms should be acting only as cables and thus should not be performing much of the work. During the turnover, however, the elbows must swing under and in front of the bar such that the bar lands on the anterior deltoid. The turnover will end with the bar in a position that places the wrists in extension and the elbows in maximal flexion. This requires an adequate amount of wrist flexor and elbow extensor mobility. Then, to catch the bar, the lifter must drop beneath it in a semi-squat. This is going to require a substantial amount of quadriceps, gluteal, and hamstring strength in order to support that weight on the shoulders of the lifter. Some extrinsic factors that can affect injury may include environmental factors as well as the nature of the power clean. Some of these extrinsic factors during a power clean include the highly complex and high-speed nature of the movement, the amount of external weight used, the shape and grips of the barbell, the frequency of repetitions, as well as surroundings and footwear. Intrinsic factors include anthropometrics, such as skeletal structure and alignment, bone density, strength, flexibility, and a history of previous injury. Some of these intrinsic factors that may affect injury may be a lack of adequate back, core, or lower extremity strength, affecting stability of the vertebral column and the amount of force that may be imposed on the back, faulty alignment, such as increased lordosis or kyphosis, a leg length discrepancy or decreased flexibility, and previous history of decreased bone density or pre-existing conditions such as scoliosis. We can decrease injury risk by altering some of these factors. Some extrinsic factors can certainly be altered, such as frequency, speed, and duration of the activity, and others cannot be altered, such as anatomical abnormalities and some pre-existing injuries and conditions. We can intervene on some of these factors to make this lift as safe as possible. We should always intervene on improper technique as quickly as possible. Injury can occur during any of the phases of this lift, but especially during the first pull. If the first pull is executed with improper technique, the chance for injury increases because there may be increased stresses on the lumbar spine. Therefore, when we teach this lift, particularly to novice lifters, it is important that we observe technique carefully and fix any faults before they become habits. We can also modify other factors such as footwear and external weight. Decreasing the amount of external weight will decrease the amount of force that must be exerted by the lifter to move the weight, decreasing the risk for injury. Furthermore, individuals who are not performing the lift with proper technique on a consistent basis should be discouraged from increasing loads too rapidly. Training schedules can also be modified if needed to ensure that lifters are allowing enough time for recovery and remodeling. Additionally, muscular imbalances and mobility issues can be resolved by screening the athlete for dysfunctions using an overhead squat assessment or functional movement screen, identifying any dysfunctions and addressing them appropriately with the use of self-myofascial release, strengthening, and stretching. In review, the power clean is a very rapid, complex movement that requires substantial coordination and strength. Mobility is of utmost importance during the power clean. It's imperative to be very mobile to perform this lift correctly with minimal risk for injury. Also, core strength and stability is one of the most important factors affecting potential for injury during this lift. A weak core is going to substantially increase your risk for injury if you're performing power cleans. Also, this lift should be performed and taught with caution and close observation, and faults should be addressed quickly. These were just some interesting statistics that I found with my research. They relate in general to weightlifting injuries, not specifically power clean, but I still thought that they were noteworthy. They occur primarily to the lower back, followed by the knee and the shoulder. That's why I was stressing so much that first pull. Injuries to the low back, mid back, and shoulder were acute in nature. Injuries to the knee tend to be chronic. However, overall, injuries among competitive elite weightlifters tend to be overuse injuries and not traumatic injuries. And that was it. This is my references. I hope you guys enjoyed.